Welcome to Friday Live, the June edition. Friday Live's Klai Studio's contribution back to our FileMaker community. Thanks everybody for coming out today. We're going to be talking about full stack development with Klai Studio and FileMaker. We try to make these events interactive, so please, by all means, chime in. You don't have to just type the message in the chat, but feel free to actually come on camera and answer questions and so on and so on. Just want to mention a couple of things. We had some recent events. Usually we talk about the upcoming conferences, but I put together a little slideshow. If I can find it here. And we'll just play that. And these are some of the events that we've recently participated at. Day one. Cheers. This was Vienna Calling. Usually find the European conferences a lot more social events. This is Elevate FM in Toronto, Mark Richmond, Doug Gardner. This is some special camera effects here. Doug, actually, we're gonna try to get him on Friday Live. He gave a great talk on self-improvement, which was kind of the regular FileMaker conferences.
When it's not around, he's full of cash. Your priority stack is how you can answer that question.
Oops. There's a really interesting talk on all the alternatives to FileMaker and the pros and cons of a number of them. And here's Pearson giving a talk on designing with AI.
So, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Pearson. I'm the UX designer at Delta Engineering.
You want to talk on API first design in the age of AI? Sorry about the crazy loud music here. I'm not sure if it's as loud on your end. Do repeat slides in here. And CQDF, Bruno and Philippe from Direct Impact, Mike Burgi in the back. And Bruno gave a talk on agentic development as well. The end of that. If you get a chance to attend these events, I really encourage it because it's not about the content. A lot of people look at the talks and say, I'm not going to go to this event for the talks. It's It's the hall sessions that count. Those are the most valuable ones. I think we can meet up like this, and a lot of you guys go
Mm-hmm.
to a number of different other groups, and they're okay, but it's one-sided. It's a one-sided
Mm-hmm.
conversation, right? When you're live, you're interacting, we're talking, we're sharing ideas, bouncing things around, a zillion ideas a second,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, and that ends up becoming a really, really beneficial. So I try to
Mm-hmm.
encourage going out to these. Actually, I'm not sure if I left this slide in here, but I'm not sure, Hassan, do you have updates? I
Yeah,
have
I guess
some.
the biggest updates you guys are gonna witness some of them today. Behind the scenes, the team has been working a lot on AI and MCP, and I'll be demoing some part of it today as well as Bruno.
Super. I just want to talk about some
Oh,
updates here.
actually, I want to give one more update. There was a bug where people's page wasn't reflecting when they were updating their HTML, or their page wasn't being fully responsive or initializing. Uh, that should be fixed for the most part. If anyone's page does have that issue, please reach out to us so we can patch it across the board. But yeah, that's all for me.
This is just our internal notes here, but I want to mention a few things that happened over the course of May in terms of our base code. Klai Studio's written on approximately, from your perspective, three, arguably four different stacks. So one of our operating system is the main base code, what we call our base code. So we did quite a few different things over the past month, cross pods, because we have multiple data centers, multiple pods for redundancy. Running in those data centers, we've increased some site caching that's in between those for performance. DB-driven header script. Some changes to the way server-side rendering hydration works. That's when we basically render your page, grab the information, and it's primarily for search engine compatibility, AI compatibility. We've talked about that in a previous Friday Live, but if you want to know more about that, come on to a workshop that we have every Thursday. Some things, some slight behavioral changes in they're not breaking though in card modals. The way the utility hooks work. There was we noticed a regression with one of the deployments where the data models that were returned from your server were not being applied properly to the active window. That was fixed. Thank you for reporting these kinds of things. We do triage them all. Fixed card window closed events. That's on close actions and on before close actions. So the utility hooks basically again target the proper window. And we also added support for MCP. Now we talked about MCP quite a bit and over for the past year and 7 months or so that it's been available. We did an early proof of concept for client-facing apps, not so much for Klai Studio itself. But we've added MCP support into our base code for any users, any developers who want to do that. Now, there's lots of MCP solutions. Claris has one as well. Apparently, they're going to be rewriting a lot of that because it's just running on one server and it wasn't really meant to scale, from what I understand. And it has some issues. So they haven't really been doing a lot of development. My understanding, and I'm talking just from the hallway conferences that I've had with the Claris folk, is that they are going to be moving that MCP onto your server rather than having it cloud-based. So right now it's cloud-based, and then that's talking through the OData and the data API together to your server. Instead, they'll be moving that right into your FileMaker server. There's pros and cons of that. But what it does do is it offloads their burden on their requirements for hosting that. So there's lots of options there. I think some other people have written MCP adapters and things like that. We have one built into the base code. I'm trying to think, there are some advantages of it over a conventional MCP. It's written to be dynamic, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll make get into the technicals if we have some time. But fundamentally, it allows you as a developer to dynamically change what that MCP is, which nobody else will be able to do. And that's because we pass that information all into FileMaker. So those are most of our bigger changes there for the past month or so. We have some new changes. As you know, we announced almost 2 years ago that we're going to structure our price changes, and we grandfathered. We actually made our price changes back then, but we grandfathered everybody's accounts for well over a year now. And we're finding the final stages of that and transferring some of the legacy accounts. And one of the requests that we had from some of our community and some people in the call here today is that, hey, can we have a plan that we can use in-house that we can actually build something, not 2 pages, because that's kind of, I don't want to say useless, but it's not, you're not building too many big apps on that. So we've introduced a new test drive plan, and the test drive plan has quite a bit, it's quite a lot more generous. Basically, our old test drive plan, sorry, there's a mouse off here. Our old test drive plan was had 2 pages of free account. The new one has 15. So that means you can build a full app for free. So there's no cost there. There are some caveats. You have a single developer, single server, no custom domains. There is a watermark that will be on the page. We're not positive how long, if it'll be dismissible or what we'll do precisely there, but there will be a watermark there. Single developer account, basic authentication, so you can still have proper demonstration if you want to build something up quick. You know, you have an event, a World Cup watching party, and you want to whip something up, you can do that really easily and still have it live and running. And you don't really need all those other things of a production environment. Um, the watermark I mentioned here, we don't do any onboarding or anything like that as far as support, just community support, which should be fine, and no advanced integrations. Right, those are integrations that we support, not so much the ones that you build into the app, which you can just build pretty much anything you want. So we're excited about that. Looking forward to seeing what people build on that. I think that's going to give everybody a lot more flexibility to do things. It still has allows you to have all your keep all of your I'll call them temporary apps that you've built. Those little things that here and there. A lot of people build stuff and then they don't want to get rid of it, but they don't want to be paying for it as well. Now, if you have any questions about that, I'm not sure if it's the this next week. Next week's workshop or the week after that, I'm hosting that, but you're welcome to reach out, or you can also contact Madalena from our team in accounting, and she can help walk you through any questions you have there. All right, Pearson, you mentioned, I'm not sure if you have something, if you have a spotlight today.
Uh, yeah, not I don't have a huge thing prepared. I was really focused yesterday on the new releases from Figma. They're currently, I don't know if they're still doing it right now, but uh they're they have their config conference going on right now, and they made a lot of new announcements. So I've been playing around with the Figma tool and trying out some of their new features. Um I was going to talk about it, but I don't know if these features are necessarily applicable to the developers here. Maybe I'm not sure if there's a good way to poll this, but I'm just curious if any of you guys are using Figma, or how many of you are using Figma, I'll say like full time or part time. Um, yeah, because it's a lot of kind of these interesting graphic design kind of tools, or more styling related tools, like they've got some new filters you can add to your images, or I'm keeping it relatively simple, but um yeah, just it's just been kind of a whirlwind of news always coming out every
Is
day.
there much,
Once,
Pearson, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you, is there much AI integration? What have they changed as far as that kind of stuff goes?
Yeah, they actually just added an AI tool. They added agents as well. So I'm still learning about it, but they are making it a lot easier for people to create their own plugins and create these agents with custom workflows. And they also have a little tool that you can use AI in Figma to make modifications to each element instead of using Figma Make, which was their bigger scale web vibe coding tool. Now I can just use AI in my regular design canvas. The problem is, of what I've noticed, is that it still kind of sucks. I'm not sure if I'm using it wrong or if my prompts are not specific enough, but I feel like that kind of almost defeats the point of the AI being able to interpret what you want and produce something that's nice. So it's still something that I'm getting used to. At this point, I still find myself more confident in my ability to manipulate these elements manually than by trusting AI, who's going to build it a little differently than I would, or who's not uh, it's not as clean as I would hope it would be. But I find that using AI is uh it is a tool in itself that you have to learn how to use um more effectively. It's not as easy as it once was with just a simple text input and text output. Now there's a
Did,
lot more nuance to it that makes it a little more of a skilled uh
did you get the
tool.
impression? Did you get the impression that is there going to be less emphasis on Figma Make, do you think, or like is that going to be kind of a dead thing? Because we have Claude Design. Google's come out with another a tool. I forget what it's called. Google something. I don't know. It's part of the
Sketch or
studio. Sketch. That's right.
y-
Yeah.
y-
So I mean, you have all of these UX pseudo UX tools, from what I've seen from people's demos, they've got maybe 40 or 50 different kind of templates, and then they just kind of modify those templates. Is what the AI does. They've kept it exceptionally safe. And I'm wondering if Figma's saying, well, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of competition that's coming along the line. Figma was the only or the dominant tool, and
yeah.
Sketch or Stitch or whatever it was prior to that.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Because it is interesting seeing that every AI company is producing kind of the same tools, but they're all sort of maybe they do things a little differently or they have maybe a little more unique use cases. But Figma Make, for one, that's one that I've probably heard the least amount about since it was released. I hear a lot more about Claude Code or Claude Design. So I wonder if this is them kind of shifting focus from Figma Make and integrating AI more directly into the canvas itself. I know they've added something called code layers, which thought was I was under the impression that that was the ability to start coding directly into Figma. Um, but I think it's more specific to special interactions. I saw some examples of it being used to create kind of more stylistic, fun interactions where you can hover your mouse over some letters and they all kind of spread around your cursor kind of thing. Where it's not necessarily you're coding a website, but you're coding interactions that add a little bit of whimsy to your designs.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I'm not sure where how Figma Make is doing. I didn't hear really anything about it from config from the videos and talks that I saw.
Maybe we'll throw up a poll because I'd be interested in seeing what people are doing, if anything, for design. And my fear is that everybody's going to say, "Oh, I'm just going to let the AI make the design," and then, in 2 years, 3 years time, we're all going to look at these designs and say, "Oh, yeah, that's 2026." All right. So,
Hmm.
all right. Thank you. Next, I want to talk about something that's available for developers now. We've just produced, and we'll be reaching out. Some of our team will be reaching out on this. Um, Roger, our project manager and business development lead, has put together a sales enablement kit for consultants, and I'll just give you a quick talk about it, just really, really quick. Basically, it is a set of resources that developers can use when um, developers can use when they are pitching for new jobs or new clients. And the kit comes on. We'll send this out to consultants, but the kit comes with a number of talking points, a number of things, pros and cons, and all kinds of stuff like that, and on um, selecting your stack and what Klai is bringing to the table versus a full stack development. You know, there's always like everything. There's pros and cons. Should I use FileMaker for this? Should I use Visual Basic? Should I use Basic? You know, going back all through the years. So there's always these different trade-offs, and we talk quite a bit about these, and also a number of testimonials and things related to that. So that's available if you're interested in that. We have that as a resource, and we'll be sending that out, links to that shortly. Next, I want to talk about something that's brand new, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is super, super fresh. This is released in beta right now, and we'll put the final deployment out this afternoon. And it's our Klai Studio MCP. If you haven't used an MCP, I'll just tell you a little bit quickly about what an MCP is. It stands for Model Context Protocol. It's kind of which is a bit of, I think, a bit of a slop word, but basically it's an API for AI, and it's a standardized AI API. It was originally introduced about a year and a half ago, last in November of 2024, end of four, five, six, something like that, by Anthropic. Anthropic is the maker of Claude or Claude, and the idea is they wanted to standardize APIs because without doing that, every LLM needs to effectively write an API to talk to whatever it is that they want to talk to. It's not a miracle thing. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. What makes an MCP really useful is that you can centralize your intelligence. That means your LLM, and that can talk to your different contexts. So in our case, it's going to be Klai Studio and FileMaker, but in another case, it might be Klai Studio and your marketing CRM. It could be anything like that. So by talking to those two different things at the same time, you bring the knowledge to one spot. The MCP is in beta right now, and it's available only for version 3 of our base code. I don't recommend trying to use it on version 2 apps because the syntax is different and the LLM will make a ton of mistakes. Let me just talk a little bit more here about sort of what we're going to be talking about today. And again, please remember this is all beta. We've incorporated into our MCP, we've incorporated a reporting and issue tool. So the LLM, if it finds any problems or any friction while it's using the MCP, this is something you can do now. It's pretty cool. Is it'll report back to us a detailed synopsis of the problems that it ran into or any friction, and then our AI can go and look through all of those reports and say, "Oh, I need to tweak it here and here and here and make these changes." Right? So now we can close that loop pretty quick. So basically, on one end of the spectrum, we have some type of LLM harness. All right. Most of us in the team use Cursor as our default code editing tool, but some people use Visual Basic. Somebody else might use Claude Code or something like this. Doesn't really matter. As long as the client can accept an MCP, which virtually everyone does now. That MCP talks to two things. It talks to Klai Studio on one side, and we're going to be talking about an example where it's talking through Genie, a coding plugin for FileMaker, and that will talk to FileMaker. So from one perspective or one contextual paradigm, you can see the entire stack here. Again, the advantages of the fact that it comes with a full stack, the fact that you can take an external model here now. And that external model, the harness it's not so much that there's a huge difference between different models, but the harness is what makes a huge difference. The wrapper that's driving that model. And it used to make a massive difference, and it's making less and less of a difference every 6 months or so. When we started introducing AI into FM Better forms, we were using the very first ones. We never released it to the public, but we had version 3 of GPT, so GPT-3. And we found that was you could barely do what we needed to do. There was no such thing as tools. Tools didn't get introduced to around four. And so we didn't have any tools. We didn't have any sort of advanced thought processors, no such thing as reasoning at the time. So the LLM was just spewing stuff out, and hopefully it would kind of be better. Then as things evolved, we built our own tool harness to emulate tools because tools weren't built into the LLM at the time. And then around 4.1 or so, that's when tools became really useful and really popular. And we kept our own existing tool harness for until about 4 or 5-ish around then. And then we switched over to being able to use functions or tools that were originally called functions. And in that process, our harness got better, but it takes a lot of time, right? And we're only a team of have a dozen or so, and there's a heck of a lot of work that goes into supporting a big environment. So by offsourcing some of that intelligence and some of that harness development, letting these other tools who have billions of dollars to develop, by doing that, it's allowed us to bring in or tap into their capabilities. So we'll still continue to build our internal and work on our internal AI assistant because there's times that it's just much easier. But the external one has a lot more capability, and especially the fact that it can do a lot of more things like introspection by opening up a browser page. It can do data acquisition, so it can go and find out, your sources of data and grab that information, pop it into your development model, and so on. So that's sort of the hierarchy or the history there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this over to Hassan. He's going to give us a demo and show us how to configure your MCP and how to get started with that.
Hey guys, I'm going to share my screen over here and we'll get started. So one thing to note, I know Charles mentioned that it's in beta and it will be released. I'm still going to be doing this in production, so everyone could, in theory, follow along and all, or just see what I'm doing, and they could test this out later. There are just little things here and there that will be worked out. But yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to be following our Notion documentation that we have on this on how to get set up. It's very quick setup. We have it available for both Cursor and for Claude. So
Just a
I'm just
quick,
going to,
sorry, Hassan, just a quick note. This has now been pushed into our regular docs as well. So you can just go to docs.claystudio.
yep. And now to get started, it's a very simple step. We have about these 5 steps here. We open our cursor settings, navigate to tools, and add this here. So let's do this right now. So I'm in cursor. I'm going to go to my account over here. I click on settings. Down here says tools and MCPs. I go over there. And right here, add custom MCP. I'm going to click on that. And here's where we would paste our MCP. So to grab this, I'm going to go into my app over here. All I do is click on these 3 dots to open up the settings. We're going to click edit, MCP, and we're just going to click fetch MCP configuration here. Next, we'll copy this and we can just paste that right in here. Here we go, save that. And now if we go back here, we're set up. So just I want to kind of showcase this app. This is a completely empty app right now. There's nothing in here, nothing configured, and we're going to make an app from scratch. So what I'm going to do over here is I have 2 available prompts that I've tested with. One is for a shipment company and one's for a physician's office, so where patients can see upcoming appointments and stuff. I think I'll go with the physician's office one since that's more applicable. They can upload documents. It's similar to a lot of the apps we've seen. So over here, I'm just going to paste this in. This is a prompt. Build me a new app in Klai Studio for clients at a physician's office. We're going to view upcoming appointments, see files they haven't submitted, lab results, and their personal info. Make it themed and detailed. The name will be Better Health. So I haven't given it too much stuff on how the theming and styling should look or anything. I kind of just gave it somewhat basic. So I'm just going to click. Oh, before I click enter, I do want to show everyone this over here. This is a cursor dashboard so you guys can get an estimate for how much price this is going to cost. So currently for today, I've spent 81 cents USD. So we'll make this prompt, send it, and see how much it costs us to build a full app. So I'm just going to click enter here. No, we're using the default cursor model. This is Composer 2.5. I've turned the fast mode off.
Just a quick note on that. If anybody who is using Cursor, um, the composer model is pretty good, right? It's quite good. It's almost as good as the frontier models, and I would say arguably better in some ways. Um, but it's by default it says Cursor 2.5 fast, which is 6 times the cost of the regular one. And it's kind of hidden how to turn it into slow. You have to click and then click the model and click edit next to the model, and it's really buried in here. And then you can turn the fast mode off. It's the exact same model, just doesn't have the priority. And honestly, you won't notice a difference in speed. So it's like
Yeah, so essentially this is just gonna run in the background, maybe take a few minutes, and this will, in theory, make our full app over here.
I'll just mention some of the technical bits here. So what we've exposed to the MCP currently, and I'll tell you what's on the roadmap as well. What we've exposed is the ability to create page, update and edit pages. We intentionally left out deleting pages. The ability to write to the system level data. So that means styling, global actions, DOM header loads, and so on, and the ability to create components. So that pretty much gives you everything that's in the app that you can do, and you can have introspection. The tool is designed to be token conscious or conscientious. And so what happens is, and we still have some more optimization to do here, and we'll release that over the other optimizations over the next few weeks. But basically, instead of writing to the entire page and reading the entire page, the tool has the ability to selectively read. So that means if you have a page that has 800K of stuff on it, it doesn't try to that would just totally swamp your context and blow out your entire LLM workflow. So what it'll do is it'll selectively read a small chunk of that context. So it's a sort of a smart tool.
You can see here it does take a few minutes since it is building a full app from scratch. So far, it looks like we're at about a minute or two in, but it'll tell you what it's doing as it goes along as well. Right now, it's adding page UI schema and form settings. It made the patient portal with the data models first, so it has the model to build around all the design. If I go over to my app over here, I feel like I could go in here. Let's see. Yeah, so far you see it started with this one page over here, and it's going to keep building. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions about how to get the setup or anything about prompting, or just, I guess, the MCP in general?
Yeah, sure. I have a question. So if you're working on this with multiple environments, do you add and remove so there's only one at a time, or how does that work?
I can take that one if you want.
Yeah, sure.
So the MCP is currently scoped. The configuration is scoped to an environment, single environment, as you saw there. If you have multiple environments, you certainly can do. You just add the config for each one. The namespace inside that you'll see inside your configuration in your code editor is basically the app name hyphen the environment. So that way you can easily visually identify them, and you can also tell the AI use my office app and add to this page. Use my food delivery app and work on that page.
Yeah,
Does that
you
make
see
sense?
here,
Did I
it has the
answer?
app name over here, MCP
Yeah, that sounds
Firelive
good.
app page.
But if there's multiples and you don't specify, it'll make sure it clarifies which one you want to work on before it just starts
It'll do it
working.
as good as your harness does,
Yeah.
right? You know, I've had 3 apps of it enabled, and I turn them off sometimes just to make sure, mostly because we want to check and we have some stuff that has similar names. And I haven't seen it screw up personally. Um, but this is something that we've made a conscious decision to scope it to the environment and not to your account. So it's scoped to the developer, the environment, and it uses your app's API key, which will roll for Hassan's app because it's on display there. It doesn't really matter though. So yeah, so that helps sort of keep things contained for now.
So let's see. So right now it navigated to the app around the MCP, took a screenshot to see what it's looking like, and it's still going. This is because I asked it to verify its work. Normally I don't ask it to do that, but kind of just showing off the capabilities where it'll go on your app, look at everything as well, and see if it's properly rendering.
Just a quick for the people who are watching. If you could do like a hands up or a thumbs up or emoji, are you using an MCP for anything? All right, so a few people, but not too. It looks like not too many. Maybe it's kind of a biased voting thing here, right? And what are you, if you don't mind me asking, Jacob and Carlos, what are you guys using MCP for currently?
Yeah, so going on Pearson, I was using MCP with Figma. So that's just one use case. We've explored a few different other ones, but um, that's the one I'm kind of using.
That's kind of a cool one because so we have a Figma plugin, but like anything, I'm gonna mention this later on, things are changing fast. All right, so it's like, okay, let's add a plugin. We added a plugin. It does a pretty decent job with preserving fidelity, and and but now with an MCP, you can actually have the MCP talk to Figma directly and then to Klai Studio or whatever it is you're talking to from there. So that actually acts as a unifier and eliminates the need for that plugin.
Yeah, and from my side, I am using context 7 and something for GitHub is Git Kraken. Also, I have file system. So because I do some web development too, I need to. I think one of those like can see the files, like see where's like the path, so it can
Mhm.
it creates the architecture better, or that's my understanding. And for the Git one, it's for to understand um, comments, repositories, PRs, and those things.
So as it's going right now, it's navigating to the browser a lot, so I just sent it a prompt that don't check your work right now.
We use Notion as a knowledge base, data knowledge base, and by connecting the Notion MCP up to our code editor, we find that's really been great for things like change logs, for stuff like we do R&D for our new product. We do a lot of R&D. Well, all of the R&D is done in Notion, and there's probably 100 pages of research in there. And it's been excellent for assimilating all of that stuff together, as well as using that as a source document for when you're generating new code as well.
So while this finishes running, I want to show my other test case that I had made. So this took two prompts to make. The first prompt was just to make this physician app same as this, and the second prompt was to use the BF file proxy instead. So if you look at this app, this is actually fully wired up. You notice it'll path between. It has all the different stuff. This is using real dev data to simulate what it would look like. All through here. And if you notice over here on the documents over here, a big problem a lot of people have is the uploading. But it made the BF file proxy upload component itself and put it over here. So for example, if I show the components here, oh, yeah, yeah, I made the full component. It wired everything up between pages because I can click on stuff over here and it'll take me to my lab results. Click over here, it'll take me to my documents. Clicking here, it comes to my upcoming stuff. And this was
No.
all two prompts. And first prompt was to make it, and the second prompt was to edit something. So yeah, right here, if I show my component off, I made the full file proxy component.
So it also took advantage of some new features that we've introduced about 6 months ago, 5 months ago, which is event sort of state management within the component. Like in the past, when you built component, you would have to go and fetch the component library. Let's say you're using UPI or you're using, module X. You'd have to put that in your DOM insertions. You don't no longer have to do that. It can be compartmentalized right within the component itself. So it loads on the fly, and that information is available on how to build that to the LLM. Excuse me, and then it can actually structure the component properly.
So this is the live app. This is the prompt we finished just now, what is built over here. It looks like it was missing the dev data, I believe. Yeah, right here. Let's enable that. It just didn't enable the dev data. But right here, this built it all off one prompt. This is just a profile page over here. I believe the only thing that's missing on these pages is to enable the dev data. So let's just go over ahead and do that, and then we can view our full app. So go to my data model, enable dev data. It does have some hiccups from time to time, like over here, as we mentioned, this is very early on, but it is capable of building your fully fledged app as well. So let's see what it did right over here. Let's enable our dev data. And this is kind of what it built right here. That was to upload everything. Let's just preview this. Oh, let me turn on the dev data and save that. Boom. It made our full app over here. Now we can prompt it further as well. But before we do that, I want to show how much this would have cost in terms of spending. So that was about 60 cents as a AD before. So that was about 60 cents to build it. And this is with me telling it to check your work and visit the page, which I canceled midway through. I think that takes a lot of more tokens. But we can further prompt it to on the documents page, use the file proxy for uploading. Go to box samples. So we can give it a further prompt and have it fix this page over here.
Hassan,
Yep.
you build pretty quick. Um, how long would it take you to build those pages, would you say?
Yeah, because to build these pages myself, it's kind of
Yeah,
time
yeah, like
consuming,
pure
especially
pure
like,
scratch, no AI.
yeah, like this is pure scratch, no AI at all. This is no AI assistant, no GPT or anything. This would still take like building a full app like this. Let me open it back up and go through all the pages. This would definitely take a few hours to build everything. Like for example, this page over here, because this is build this table, then you'd copy paste the same table down, but then getting the styling and still building it correctly, because this is pretty nicely detailed and styled. Like this looks good, the cards are good, the font choice is all correct as well. This would probably take, I'd say, at least like maybe 4 or 5 hours. But now with AI, like that just took 5 to 10 minutes. And that wasn't even just this page, that was every page. And it was all theming. And this is such a minimal prompt because you guys can give bigger prompts with the color scheming you want. You could give it maybe like, the file assets loaded up. There can be a lot more done with it. This is starting completely from scratch and it got this far. So see over here, it's still running to add the component.
Should mention too, you can turn off the starting template he had as an older one that we use because
Oh yeah.
it's in our dev environment. But this can be any template here.
Yeah, because this I did start with like some very old template we had over here. That's why it's using the native sidebar and header. But you can give it anything you want, and it can even edit existing pages. As for example, one thing I want to show off here is if I go to this section here, Bruno actually made this MCP modal, this part over here. This was actually made using the MCP. Bruno told it, I don't know the exact prompt Bruno gave it, but it added the select in with all the different agents. So this was actually made with the MCP. You can even edit your own current pages as well. Do note it's a beta feature, so when editing your current pages, just kind of check your work, but it is still working. So I want to see what it's doing here. Updating the documents. I think it's about finishing up right now.
Because of the internal telemetry that we've added, mostly the reporting of an issue, your LLM could report an issue without you knowing about it. It's not exposing any data or anything like that. But the good thing there is that we get more reports and we get detailed and proper reports, not my thing's not working kind of um, support issues, which is really hard to debug. So we'll be able to dial in the communication and smoothen out the communication between the two machines. Um, the neat thing there is from the telemetry we received, and we've received maybe about 7 or 8 of these right now. Last night we adjusted. We can adjust our prompts because the MCP is controlling the data and everything, and we can dial that in and really adjust it and not overfit it, but really adjust it quickly. So.
Yeah, that was kind of I'll leave that at the demo for now. Do note this is live. We are actively making changes. This is currently its first form in the beta feature. You are free to test this if you'd like, and like feel free to report any bugs or any issues you see with it, and this will get ironed out. Next, I want to pass it off to Bruno, who wants to also showcase something with MCP. Before that, is there any questions on how this built or anything related to that? Oh, let's see some chat.
Actually, we
Can
got one here.
Cursor also
Concur.
give it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there is a in the chat here. Let me just pull it up. Ali asks, can Cursor also give us the table schema and what scripts are required in FileMaker? We're getting to that. Bruno's going to talk a little bit more from the FileMaker side and between a code editor to FileMaker communication. So, in short, your answer is yes.
Carlos, looks like you're trying to ask a question, but we can't hear you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep, that's good now.
Oh, yeah. Is it possible to specify, for example, I see that when you create it, when you give the prompt, it created HTML but not components. So I guess the scripts, my question will be, is it possible to specify like, oh, like build this component, like card component and those things?
Yes, because it actually did make this component over here for the file proxy.
Okay.
And this isn't because it doesn't really have access to the our file proxy like that. Like it doesn't have a component example. It actually just like looked at the docs and saw our file proxy
Reproduced it, yeah, from
and
scratch.
reproduced its own component from scratch. It didn't actually use an existing one. So
The one
yes, you
that took
can
us
get
so
it to
long
make
to work.
components.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Thank you.
Carlos, what you can do too, of course, is in your own development environment, your IDE, is you can add preferences. You can say, hey, whenever you're using the Clay, whenever you're building Clay apps, I prefer to use HTML elements. I prefer when possible and when I'm having to reuse an element to create it as a component. And then you can also say, I also prefer to break those things down, those HTML. I don't want one giant HTML on the page. I want to make it more manageable, break them down into better forms elements. Or sorry, excuse me.
All right.
Tons.
Yeah, that was my second question. Is it like possible
Yeah.
to update the current app?
Yeah, so that's what I was mentioning earlier. For example, this
Mhm.
MCP like modal, this section over here was all actually, besides this little part over here, this was built using the MCP itself. Bruno made the select and these text like that was, I believe, through the MCP editing this page. So yes, you can use the MCP to edit current apps as well.
Okay, cool, cool. Any limitations for this new tool?
Some small ones currently. The first one is if you have a large HTML string that's written in one shot. Um, so we introduced some technology into Klai Studio about 9 months ago or so that does differential saves. So when you make a change and you change your app name description or something like that, it's only sending that information. So the saves become much quicker. Right? We did that because we started to see people building bigger and bigger, more complex things and became a bottleneck that we didn't imagine, 8 years ago. So the cool thing is the architecture internally is the same that the LLM can piggyback on that same differential save. that same ability to target. So the LLM actually sees your site as one big hunk of JSON, if you will, almost your site plus one page. So it can target anywhere within that your pages stack. And um, sorry, where was I going with this? Um, yeah. So if you want, sorry, I lost my train of thought, Carlos. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm so fried.
no,
Sorry
no
about
worries. It's like it's really good. Like yeah, I see the potential in
oh,
here.
limitations. Yeah,
Mhm.
sorry, limitations where we're going with this. So the limitation is right now it can read if you have a 1 megabyte string and it'll read a section, byte 952 to 10,000 or whatever. It can read those set. And the LLM, we've designed the tool. Maybe we can talk about this sometime because it'd be good if you're ever building these tools because there's lots of lessons learned. But the LLM has the choice. It can decide how much data it wants to fetch. Our backend will truncate it to approximately 8 to 10,000 tokens at a time, so it won't swamp your context window. But the LLM can automatically say, hey, I want a bigger string and a smaller string. So that's one limitation, is it's good for reading, but for writing, it writes the entire string in one shot. And that is a disadvantage to large HTML because you could have 50K of HTML. So currently, right now, and this will change probably in the next couple of weeks, um, but we'll change the ability to write to smaller to targeted strings. And it'll also increase the performance of subsequent edits. If you say, format this number as European currency, as in euros versus North American dollars, then that will be, maybe 100 bytes now of targeted write instead of the 20K or something along those lines. So that's one limitation. There are a few other smaller things. It doesn't have any limitation as to what it can reach. And we have resources that teach your LLM to about all of the areas of the app. And hopefully, if there are any spots that we've missed, um, it'll target those. One other thing we've just recently added, just a couple days ago, is the ability to lint your data. So your data comes in from your LLM. If it's malformed or it's shaped bad or it's trying to write it to the wrong spot, it will block that. That's not in production right now. That ability it is in our dev environment. Um, so that's I wouldn't say it's a limitation, but it's a safeguard that we've added in.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Charles,
Yes.
is in a multi-developer environment, we nicely always get the page blocked so that just one person at a time can make changes. Do we see something or do we get feedback from the MCP that somebody's using that page?
Yes and no. You won't see a little MCP avatar robot come up and say, "Hey, I'm on the page." But that's an interesting idea. But the thing is that it would only be on the page for like couple hundred milliseconds. Um, because the MCP is riding on the internal architecture of the collaboration, so the layer of software it comes in is before all of that stuff happens. All of your clients will stay up to date if you're on the page. So, for example, if you, myself, and the LLM are all editing the page, the LLM will override our changes. But there's a caveat there. When it overrides those changes and you try to save over them, if for some reason your page didn't receive the update, you'll be blocked. So you won't actually stomp on top of that. If your page is live, it still trumps our environments. Even if you have priority in the editing, you're the page owner, it'll still override that. So, but it will keep your page up to date.
So
So there's a bit of a caveat there. If we find that there's some weird, funky issues, let us know right away, and then we can figure out a solution around that. We tried to incorporate as much as we could think of, but obviously, there's these lots of known unknowns.
well, I'm just showing
Correct.
this app real quick as well. This is a one-page app that it built in one shot as well. This was a one prompt on where I just told it to build me a shipment app. This one I actually gave a very minimal prompt. But this is kind of what it built over here. I told it give me some dev data and some ways to test demos. And for example, like it's pretty detailed. It even has like validation over here, a track package because I don't have one to continue. I kind of like the design they made over here, like the gradients. It does look kind of AI like, but it is still pretty nice. Like we got the details here, pretty detailed. And it kind of just looks like a full app already. And this was just one page it built out of it. And if you guys want to see how it looks, it just made some HTML blocks over here. And that's kind of how it made everything.
Which is a good way of doing that, right?
Yeah,
That's a very manageable way of editing
some
your
dev
stuff,
data.
touching your code.
Yeah.
If you want your designs to look less AI like, like up until just a few months ago, all of the designs were purple, right? All of the AI designs were purple with fades. And prior to that, they were all like bluish, and they seem to go in with as these models get updated. But there's lots of skills that you can have. There's a ton of skills about UX design, come up with these different ideas, ask the user, and you can just do a quick Google. What are the best UX skills for AI layout? It has nothing to do with Klai Studio's framework. It's all about the LLM here, right? So I would suggest trying that if you do find some really good skills that actually do some that look kind of unique and don't doesn't none of everything looks like it came out of the same machine. Um, let us know because I'd like to see them. We intentionally did not add that in to. There's some a little bit of information in the MCP about styling, but for the most part, we left a lot of it out, so it doesn't stomp on top of your choices. One other thing you can do as well is you can say to the MCP, create a style guide page, but don't put it in my navigation. And this works quite well. And then make a note in your agent's MD file, which is like a sort of a system file for your agent that, reference the styles page if you have one, if we have one. And now suddenly it'll copy the styles from the other pages and incorporate that into your design.
I think with that, Bruno, you can take over for your demonstration.
Sure. I'll share my screen. I'll show you another side of the MCP. Maybe it's going to be less stylish because it's going to be more like really vibe coded, and I'm going to be using a different tool. I'm going to be using Claude, which is a tool I don't use often, but I'm just curious, like how many people uses it in the call. I think a lot of people are using Cloud Desktop and Cloud Code and Design now compared to Cursor. So I just wanted to show that. So I'm not going to go over the configuration again. Both the MCP for Play is already connected. I have a development app over here that is ready. I have one page. I'm not going to touch that page. What I'm going to be demonstrating is I'll be creating a new page, connecting it to my FileMaker information, and ask the Genie plugin to generate scripts and hooks to send that data over directly to Klai Studio. So this is a database with a lot of information. It's a huge system that I'm already using for something else. And I created a brand new integration. It's a fresh helper file. It doesn't even have a single user. It's empty. So there's nothing. And I just use the integration, copy the hook over, and I have two empty script over here for my registration. And I'm just going to go from that and I'll vibe code. So the first thing I'll do is before I start, I'm just going to make sure that Claude has access to both MCP. I'm going to make sure that ready because I had that problem before. And while it does that, this is an ugly layout. I don't want to use that layout anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select a couple of fields here. I'm going to copy them and I'll create a new layout and we'll call it registration web just for the sake of it. And we're just going to paste those fields over. So now
Bruno,
I have
isn't that how all FileMaker apps
are ugly.
grow?
I don't
You copy a whole layout and then you just get rid of one field and just anyway.
But you'll get the hang of it. So what I wanted to do is just create a layout to isolate the fields I want to display on the web. So both servers are ready. The goal here is I don't want to have to say anything. I don't want to have to explain that these are the fields that I want to use. So I have Genie, which is my plugin for FileMaker development. It has its own internal MCP server that's running. Cloud Code is running it. And at this moment, what I'm going to do is just take a screenshot I just found on the internet this morning. Like this is like an Airbnb profile screenshot design. I'll dump that in there. And what I'll ask the Cloud Code to do is generate me a new page inside Klai, use the registration web layout to figure out the fields it needs, and also build the hooks it needs to do the work. I did try that before, like a couple of times. So just to save us a lot of typing, I tried another layout and it works. So this is a brand new example. So what I'll do is I'll just paste that and modify what I want to do. So registration information, my layout is there, two new script. No, I think that's pretty good. So basically what I'm saying is exactly that. Take the two hooks that we have in the script workspace. So I don't have to select them. I don't have to copy them. The plugin is going to grant access to those two scripts, and Cloud Code is going to do the rest. And I'll just submit that over and let it do its magic. So this can take a couple of seconds. I've put it on Sonnet 4.6 medium just to make sure that it runs, so we don't have to wait for Opus to do its magic. So it's going to do its plan. It's going to go over both tool sets, both inside the Klai Studio resources. There is already a guide on how to build hook sets properly for Klai. And in Genie, what it's going to do is just grant access to the database, all the fields, all the layouts, and all the scripts. So when they both work together, what happens is that it's using Klai's internal logic to build the page and structure everything and connect the hook set, and is going to use the guide on how to build the script properly in Claude, build the script, and stage it into FileMaker for us. So we're just going to let it run, and when those scripts are going to be ready, they will appear in the section over here. And right now, we're just going to wait a little bit.
Few people are asking where they can get Genie. I posted the link in the chat.
You see, it just figured out all the fields on the layout. I didn't grant access to anything. It knows that my FileMaker is open on that layout, and that's why I created the layout live, just so that people could see that I didn't pull the layout in the bag or whatever. It took all the fields that I copied, and it's just going to go ahead and build the rest. The design it can be hit or miss, to be honest, because I just gave it a screenshot, so it's very poor indication. But sometimes it comes out nice, and then you can just work and adjust the design separately. But I just think it's nice to do it that way.
I kind of feel like the more we've been all in on AI, as you know, if you've been coming to any of the Friday Lives for years now. And we had our first AI discussion probably in 23, maybe 24, something like that. And I feel that especially starting a brand new project and going through lots of iterations, we have another product that we're working on right now, which I'll tell you about eventually. And I feel like AI is like a Rubik's Cube in the sense of when you say build me an app, it's a solved Rubik's Cube. And it looks beautiful. I can see all the whites, all the reds, all the greens. And then I make a change. Okay, I want the top just to be a little bit different. So I've changed that cube a little bit. And then I would say, AI, can you please change this other cube? And the next thing you know, you know what happens with a Rubik's Cube, if you can't solve it, it turns into a bit of a mess. And I really feel that a lot of people just see AI's the first version of the Rubik's Cube and they don't realize that we're not quite there yet for doing everything, right? Not for the subsequent edits. And you still have to have a really good introspection into the app and how it works to not end up with that messed up cube of a UI.
Yeah. It's also you have to work in kind of just like a regular software. You have to think of it like it's here to kickstart the project, get you moving quickly, but you still have a lot of thinking to do. It's going to speed up the initial development and get you to 80% much quicker than before in any way, and that's the goal. So you can just spend more time trying to figure out what you want and how to properly connect it, and let the AI kind of do the work. So
How do you go about planning projects, Bruno?
I like Figma. So when Pearson was talking about Figma, I like doing flowcharts. AI is good at reading them. So if you go and you're trying to kind of build an architecture and figure out a logic, just building it as a chart with proper explanation and a couple of notes can just kickstart everything right. If you give it no context whatsoever, it's going to build its own. It's going to try to figure out. So like in this example right now, I saw that it just went out and it fetched the primary key. It figured it out on its own. But the more, not even if it's like a long paragraph, but just kind of an idea of where you're heading and what kind of flow you want in your app, and then you let it do what it has to do, and then you can update the style afterwards. It doesn't matter really what it looks like at the beginning, as long as it understands the primary logic of what you're trying to build. So FigJam is a really good tool for that. Well, they have a great MCP, I think. So that's what I like to do. So I'm gonna let it finish here. It can take a couple of minutes. I don't use Claude a lot because it loads too much for me, but it's fine. It's not a lot of tokens, so that's the good news. So you can see the token count. They added that recently, but like 5 minutes to generate 4K tokens is, for me, it's
I
just fine.
think Anthropic's philosophy is let's introduce things that take up more tokens. That's what it feels like.
I ran this on low this morning and it was much faster. I wanted to put it in medium and see if I could get a better design. So we'll see.
There's a question in the chat, Charles.
Genie is Mac only? Question mark.
Yes, it's Mac only for now. Because of the way that the macOS system is coded, I should be able to release a Windows version later this year, but that's just going to give me the MCP access, which is honestly plenty. So just so if it can read the entire file and stage scripts, but there's so much more features in the Mac version that I can put in the interface to like generate calculation, generate custom functions. There's an agent work as well. You can ask any question from your database without using like Claude or Cursor and so on. But for now, yeah, only Mac. All right, so I think the scripts are going to get in soon enough. There we go. So we have the beginning. We have our first script here that got into the system. I'm going to open up my script workspace, and I'm just going to apply that over. So like our layouts here are wrong, so that's okay. Can just select our layouts manually. I don't even know if it went to layout here. I don't think it needs it. That's okay. Just going to rename it
It is entering a
here.
fine mode, so you may need a layout there.
I did it at the beginning, so
Oh, I see.
it's really, I think it was go back to original layout or something maybe, but it doesn't
Right.
really need it. I'm going to activate it, and I'll just rename this one too, just so we don't have the same problem. And my second script should be coming very soon. So it doesn't apply the script automatically for you. You can copy the XML if you want. You can use preview and view this text as well if you want to kind of preview. Second script is here. We're going to just get it in. Same thing here. Kind of funny, but you can see it just built the entire thing for me. I don't, even if there was like a mistake or so, I can ask the agent to just like review the current script and so on. But it built me two good hooks over here, and I'm going to let it do the page update. And that's one thing I can do here. If I want to modify one of these scripts, you can do it from FileMaker. You can ask the agent, but you can be like, is there any problem with this script in here? Submit that and let it do its thing, and have it live edit and just read the entire database. There is kind of an agentic workflow now. This is not live on the version that's currently out, but it's going to come out early next week. But it can do pretty much what Claude is doing and just go in your database and figure out. And it's honestly rather quickly. So it gives me kind of a couple of errors here. I'm not going to read through that, but just gives you an idea. And now we're going to go see what's happening on the other side. So we have a new page here. Now it's blank. It's okay. We're at 10K token. It's not so bad, honestly. It's so long. I don't understand why it's so long.
God.
Yeah, I know. It's still cool because you can usually let that run and work on something else. So that's kind of the goal. Is while this is working, it's not freezing you from doing anything else and starting to plan the next task or kicking off another one, building another app, creating another script.
What's your window max, your session max? For me, it's about three. Like I can get three
Uh,
things. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. Like, otherwise, I could run more, but otherwise, it's just me. I'm getting lost, and I don't feel more productive. Sometimes you have the feeling you're going really, really, really fast. Oh wow, I'm building three projects at once, and then you
Yeah.
have three times the thing to debug and figure out. Okay, why didn't that work? Oh no, I didn't review. I sent that too
Putting
quickly.
screenshots in the wrong MCP and it solves the wrong
It's
problem. It's like,
Yeah,
oops,
yeah,
I
and
did
then
that
you
like 10 minutes ago and it's
yeah,
red.
I did that on Codex, like
Yeah.
sending something to the wrong conversation, trying to stop, but it already took it in, and then I'm trying to keep up the chat, but it's talking about the other project, and they get messy sometimes, and they can. I like to run them in full access because I live dangerously, so they access each other all the time, and it's no it two three is really when I'm highly motivated and doing small things. Otherwise, two projects at the most. Otherwise, it's too complicated to maintain. Okay, so now it's looking for the hooks.
I've been breaking it down. I don't know if you use multiple monitors, I've been putting different projects in the different monitors just to physically isolate
Mm,
that space in my head. I found if it's on tabs, it wasn't enough that I was getting too much mental crosstalk.
yeah, I use only one monitor, so maybe that's why I'm getting lost. Now it's generating the page, and then we'll be able to test. But what I find amazing, even though it's taking like 10 minutes or so, it's just that I gave it almost nothing. Like the prompt is basic. It's a screenshot of whatever I'm thinking I want it to look like, and the scripts are already built. Even if I have to change a thing or two, I didn't have to explain how I want it to go. If I want to build something else on top of that, now I have momentum. And if you already have an app that has Klai integrated, it's going to work faster because it's going to look at the other scripts that you already have, and it's going to follow that format. For me, I have nothing in this database. It's completely fresh. The only two scripts I have were these two, and they're completely empty. And it's still figure out how to properly set the actions and everything because of the guides we've created to send back the information and so on. And if you have a way of working right now, it did follow the guide. It's using specific search, which is not something we use internally so much. But in this database, that's how things are done. So if you have example, you can just say, hey, you can look at this script, inspire yourself by this script, and you don't even have to copy and paste it. It's just going to go ahead, get the content of the script, bring it into the context, and properly build the next one. So it looks. So for me, all my script starts like this in this database. So it's kind of following the rules, even if I'm not telling it to do so. So now we're supposed to have a new page. So we're going to refresh that. And we'll see what comes out. Might have to refresh this.
It's good to see some new faces in the audience, guys. Welcome.
I'm in dev, so I don't know if something is up with dev. Yeah, so I have my script is here, my schema is there, but my layout is not pulling right now. I don't have a restriction ID. Okay, that's good. I have that. So I'm just gonna go check. Sorry. So it did reach my helper file and it did try to pull, but there's no registration. So I'll give it a registration ID and we'll see if it can fetch some information for me. So let me just in this database. Let's go with this one. I'll just go grab the primary key here. So can probably hard code it in the hook or something. Would be in here. I'm gonna put it in just for the demo's sake. I didn't build the page to properly receive that, I think. I'm gonna ask the MCP to modify that for me. Oh, I think you put it in the URL. That's what it said. See, I didn't ask for that. Yeah, it did pull the information for me with the teacher and the date and everything. So you kind of get the end of it. I just didn't read what Claude said. I do that all the time. So before it breaks everything. So it told me to just put that at the URL. So now I'm pulling live data from the database. I created 2 scripts, and when I woke up this morning, this helper file was not even on my server. So this is kind of just give you an idea of how fast you can move with just a screenshot, basic prompt, and an access to your FileMaker database. Honestly, I think it's just amazing to see it build that. Even if you have I had to change 2 go-to layout steps, it would have still worked. And I can probably replace that by 2ID and try to pull another registration now that I took the time to read what Claude said to me. I'm just going to dump the field in the layout here. And take somebody else. Here with another teacher. We're going to go here. I'm just going to replace that with another one. And we have somebody else. So we have hooks configured properly, live data pulled from FileMaker. My layout is from a screenshot. It's not as nice, but you could ask further prompt to modify it. You could do it from the AI assistants directly on the side. You can do it via the MCP. You can give it a Figma design to follow, and then you can just build everything from a single endpoint with the tool you use every day, which I think is very important. That's why I wanted to show Claude and not only Cursor, because you can use any ID, any agent you want with this MCP, and when they both work together, that's what it does, and I think it's honestly amazing. So that's what I have to show. I don't know if there's any question, comments.
That's super cool. Give it a few minutes for people to kind of get their questions, digest.
It's really nice.
What's everybody doing now? What are you doing for code generation, if anything? I think some people don't want to say that they're not doing anything, right? Like VS Code. Jose asks, can you show the setup from the beginning with the Claude as the coding? I think Jose is asking if you can show where in Claude do you set, watch, you don't expose API keys. Where in Claude do you set the config?
So for code, it's a little bit specific. It's not the same. They're both at the same place. And usually for chat, it takes a second. For code, you need to run a command to bring it over, but Claude is going to tell you how to do that. But you go into settings, developer, and when you have no MCP, nothing is going to show here except edit config. And I'm not going to open up that file because it contains 2 API keys that I don't want to show on screen. But when you open up that file, it's you basically just paste in what's from Klai. So when you go into your app over here, the dropdown that Hassan talked about, this was created via the MCP, and depending on what agent here you select, the configuration you're going to get back is going to be different. So for Claude, it's a specific format, and you start by selecting that. You do fetch, automatically it brings it into your clipboard. And then you open up this file, you paste it in, and inside the config file, just under it, you have to do the same thing. There's an MCP section where you just put that in. Then you're going to close Claude, reopen it, and to verify that they're okay, you're just going to go back into settings, developer, and you'll see them both connected. And to make sure that they work when you're in code mode, you can just click the plus here, connectors, and they're going to show up here, and you can toggle them on. And if you don't want to click allow for every action they're going to do, because there is a lot, you can do manage connector, and you can make them always allow to do all the actions that they have available. So it's not a super, well, it's not different than it is for Cursor. You just have to copy and paste it in the config file, restart the cloud desktop, and it's going to work in Cowork, Code, and Chat. Doing changes work better in Code because it just thinks differently with the tools. You can still do it in Chat, and it's going to be able to update pages, create FileMaker script. I just found it less efficient, personally, from the tests that I've done. The very, like, Cloud Code, even Cowork, works actually really well. It's not meant for that. Code is just better. And like I said, I'm using their, well, it's not their cheapest model, but I'm not using Opus 4.8 for this kind of demo. I think Sonnet works just well. You can use whatever you like, but that's kind of how you set it up. And we're going to also, sorry, we're also going to share tutorials for each agent and ID probably later today.
Ali asks, for Genie, do you have to copy and paste the XML for each individual script, or does it automatically create the script, or it needs to be manually copy and pasted?
No copy paste. So the way that it works, when you work from the MCP, there's a workbench and it stages the XML, and when you click apply, it automatically puts it in the script workspace. There's no manual. You can do manual copy paste if you want. You can do copy if you'd like and take it outside. But if you run apply, puts it in there. And if I go ahead and I just test, I could a random script. You can take a random script and ask Claude here, can you review this script? It's fun to say in Genie, and it's just going to pull the script contents automatically from the database, and it's going to do its work. It doesn't have to do any copy and paste. So it's going to pull a call here, get the content of the script, and it's just going to take everything. It receives, you see, all the XML and everything, and it can just do its thing. Now, maybe with the space and everything, you can get it. I'm just going to let it do. Oops, I'm in the wrong file.
Something I found that was quite useful is I had some XML from another file in my code editor, and I asked Genie, can you compare this to my production one and see what I haven't copied over, I haven't hot pasted or hot patched or anything like that. And it did a pretty good job of saying, okay, here's all of the entities that you've done. Here's how to paste them back in a production environment or whatever, and here's the order. So that was quite useful to being able to compare things.
Yeah. Cloud Code has a trouble switching. Cursor and Codex, no trouble. So I do have maybe some tweak to make with the MCP. So right now I had to reselect the file properly so that it could fetch in it. But usually with Codex, I don't have that issue, and with Cursor, don't have that issue too. I think there are just some tools that maybe Cloud Code is not seeing, so I'll have to adapt that. But usually can see everything from the system without a problem, and just fetch it. Now you see it's in the wrong file for whatever reason. But those are some tweaks, so it's fine. But yeah, it can just fetch whatever and paste whatever without having you do anything.
One last question there. Ali also asked, does Genie edit or design UI layouts in FileMaker?
Yes, you can. There is a layout mode that you can do. You can select element. You can ask it to create layouts, modify. You can do it from the MCP, and Claude's actually pretty solid at that. If you go on my website on the blog section, I've actually written an article about Claude Desktop, and I was using the chat mode, and I created an entire FileMaker layout script and I did some edits using only the MCP. And there's screenshots and guides on how to properly configure everything. And I did almost the exact same example as I did today. The only difference is I just asked to create a FileMaker layout. I sent a screenshot and it just built an interface from scratch, properly attaching the fields. So layout mode is available.
Cool. All right. I'll flip it back here, I guess.
Yep.
Unless there's any other questions. And if they come up, by all means, just chime in. What I want to do is I want to mention a couple things that we can do now. And I'm just going to steal a couple slides from a presentation I gave a few weeks ago. And about agentic development what's this thing here? Okay. That we have some stuff. We have so many tools, and one thing they really keep in mind is anything you learn today, it's very foundational, right? It may be very expired in a couple months, but it might not be as well. Some of the, there's going to be a percentage that persists. So what matters in the age of AI, is really about the things that we can do. Like if you're using a tool like the MCP going into Klai and then the Genie plugin going into FileMaker, it gives us the ability to write code that we'd never write before, and probably never write it because it's just too painful. And I want to mention some of these coding patterns just as a quick tip. The first one is the ability just to have introspection, right? To talk to your agent, to say, hey, what's going on in here? This is what's happening, and give it, like anything, you have to give it some decent information, some background information. Take the time to actually write the stuff out. Don't let it discover that, because one of the things, and half the people probably already know this, you let the LLM discover things, and it already has a preconceived notion, and it fills in the gaps with I don't want to call it hallucinations, but assumptions. Um, One of the big things that we can do really easy now is we can do enhanced error handling. That was a real pain to do in the past, and these errors, for especially if you're doing something like for us when we're building an MCP, the errors don't have to be in a certain format. Let that sink in. The errors don't have to be in a format. The LLM doesn't care what the format is of the error. If one error looks like another error, it makes no difference. It cares about the information. So in the past, we would have sort of errors that look like this, right? Some kind of an error code, possibly a number, a message, whatever that is. And that's great if you're having a system that's ingesting that constantly. But with an LLM, you can actually have an error that looks like this now. And you can produce this enhanced error. Oops, I went back one here. There we go. You can produce this enhanced error, and it can still be backwards compatible because it can still have the same error code for UI rendering. But now you have this so much more information. Now, we would never bother to build that because it's like, error happens once every 500 iterations of something. So it's like I don't bother. I just figure it out manually. But why not build these things in now? Because it's just a prompt away. Um, the other one is idempotency. So this is kind of a fancy word meaning something can be run more than once, right? And this is something that's really hard to do in traditional code, to make something that's a what we call a state machine, that it processes and it happens and it continues down a production line. And if a fault happens and you have a system that has a lot of moving parts, faults happen. So the resiliency is might be low or needs to be high. So here's a couple of examples of something, and I tried to make these examples very FileMaker-esque. I send a welcome email when a person does a click. All right, and it does a post. It sends welcome, goes to the server from the front end, goes back to the server, and now the client received a couple emails. Right, so you think, okay, well, I'm just going to add a field in FileMaker, or email has been sent, true, something along those lines. Right, but what happens when the email maybe gets when the email itself gets when it fails, the system failed. So when you're building a code, and all you have to do is literally say to the AI, you don't have to know how to do it. You just have to say, make sure this workflow is can support a dependency so that it can't run more than a bunch of times. So that's something that's super easy, incredibly powerful, right? Again, there's lots of techniques in coding on how to do that. Typically, we do it quite often with some type of state keys, ready, staged, enable, right, ready for deployment, awaiting something, and those keys represent the state. Another one is this is kind of an interesting one. It's a word actually. A Silas in here came up in a conversation, I don't know, a number of months ago, and it's really really relevant. It's a mutex, and basically the gist is that you have something like a nightly sync. It's kind of like a dependency, but from the other side. And this thing is running, and it takes time. And sometimes it takes a long time. For example, we have some processes that update certificates, and those certificates can take, you got 1,000 apps running on the network. Those certificates can take a long time. So we split them up over times and days and things like this. And but we don't want that to run more than once or sorry, we don't want them to run concurrently. So with mutex, basically the thing can be called multiple times, but it only runs once. So it doesn't allow more options. This is something that's super easy as a design pattern that you can do in with these agentic harnesses now. Um, TDD is another thing. We don't really have a place for test-driven development inside FileMaker. Currently, we don't really have I mean, you could sort of do the tools, but we don't have the test harnesses. That's something that we're looking into as well. Um, but it's really, really valuable. FDD is fear-driven development. That's when you go and have a layout and it's like, I don't want to touch this layout or I don't want to touch this script. I don't know what the heck it's doing. I'm just going to make another script and I'm going to let that other script do the thing. Now I got two of them. CSS is a classic of this. Anybody who's done any front end work, you know that if you've before Tailwind came along, you would just create a new class for something, and then the CSS would turn into an absolute nightmare because the idea was that you could reuse all of these things and it's cascading, but nobody ever did that, and it just became a mess. And that's why we ended up with Tailwind. So this is something that we can do now with LLMs we couldn't do before with test-driven development. Um, and I'm just going to zip through here. I think that was it here. Yeah, I'm going to stop at that. So those are a couple quick the two main things, the dependency and the mutex stuff, those two things allow you to almost instantly make your code way better. Doesn't mean it's going to be way better right away because you got to implement it, right? I mentioned this earlier on. Everything we talk about changes, stuff expires. So, um, anything we've learned, some concepts are gonna go stale really quick. Other ones will stay around for a long time. But we'll try to keep sharing that information. If we have any other questions, by all means, feel free to chime in. We usually kick around a little bit. I'm gonna wrap things up right now. And thank everybody for coming out. And then we'll have our draw. So stick around for an extra minute or two, and we'll see you next month.